Welcome to the Next 25 podcast, a show by VIGS, the Vienna Institute for Global Studies, where we explore the global challenges shaping our century. We're discussing various different pressuring topics of humanity in technology, entrepreneurship, well-being, international relations, and our guest today is Shirley Ben-Dak. I hope I'm pronouncing your name
Perfectly,
well.
yeah.
From Israel you are into many different things. You wear multiple hats, but the reason why you're here today is the discussion we're going to have tonight about what will our children eat in 2050. But could you please introduce yourself more properly or in more details?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you, Peter, for having me in VIGS. I'm excited for this evening's presentation. So I'm Shirley. I'm actually an Israeli-American representing tonight Mazarine Climate. So I'm a general partner at Mazarine Climate. It's a VC that's really working at the intersection of climate adaptation and water risk. So we're really looking at investing in data-driven technologies that are really helping us deal with our new climate reality. Not mitigation efforts, but really adapting to current conditions and extreme events. So that's what kind of brings me here today, and excited for it.
Yeah, Israel is well known, especially for how you manage to keep water and maintain and recycle water. And as much as I heard about your insights so far, you also deal with that topic, right?
Absolutely. I mean, innovation is kind of built in with many Israelis that you can see, just especially on the water side, also in agriculture, and there's a direct interlinkage, of course, between the two, and various advancements from precision agriculture and so forth. So it's part of how we were raised a little bit, and discussions, I guess, over dinner are quite different maybe from other conversations, but innovation is usually the common thread, almost agnostic of which application area, whether we're talking about cyber, agriculture, water, and so it's built into what we do, of course.
A strange question maybe, but when you were a kid, what was the general, approach to water at home or in your environment? How did you, talk about it, or was it really that precious?
It was, I think, again, it depends on how you're raised, where you're born. Do you live near a water body, and is it something that you take for granted? Still is, mostly today. But I remember, so I'm from Haifa, Israel originally, but I spent many years, of course, in the United States, in New York. But as a kid, we would always go to the Sea of Galilee, which is essentially Israel's only freshwater source. Most of our water is essentially desalinated and from other sources. But the Sea of Galilee was our tourism main point. It was that flagship area where you would go and you would spend a lot of family time biking around, camping, going actually into the water and swimming. But it's consistently depleting over time. And if you go now today, and it transcends different towns and cities, of course, what once reached you, and you could go and swim essentially almost in most of the beaches, now you have to walk so much just to reach the point of water. So there is a direct impact on the recreation side and, of course, the beauty of the Sea of Galilee. But for me, I remember as a kid, the commercials. There was this one commercial with this famous dancer actress, and her face would show the drought situation in Israel and how essentially in Israel, the Sea of Galilee was depleting. And the whole commercial was about taking quicker showers. Right? So it was trying to embed behavior change from something that we do daily, right? Taking showers. So essentially reminding us as Israelis to conserve water, to be mindful of it and not waste unnecessary water. And it was the first time as a child that I remember the commercial as if it was yesterday. So that would be the main point. And then later as I grew, I read about, of course, innovation and desalination and water recycling, but it was later. This, as a child, that's what I remember the most, is that commercial.
Completely different topic popped up in my mind, how we met each other, right?
This one.
So which was 13, 14 years ago when I was about organizing an event in Budapest.
Yes.
And we needed a service, right? That you were working at a company called Visibl back in the days. And you were my contact point, right? Yeah. What are your memories about those days?
Well, first of all, shout out to Visibl, who's still alive. It's always nice to see that a startup that was so early at the time is still 13, 14 later, is not just alive but thriving. So again, thank them, because Visibl was my first entry, was essentially my first regular job that I wasn't doing as an intern or just trying to get by and add to my profile. It really was my first job as a student. And I was Israeli that had just moved to New York. I was doing graduate studies. And in Israel, like in many places, it's not what you know, it's also who you know. So very well connected. And I remember a friend of mine said, this company is starting their New York office, which at the time was still rare for a lot of innovation. Today it's sparked. And I interviewed and I was able to work a part-time student job there, right? And kind of rushing between the office, which was kind of cool. It was one of the first WeWork offices, and then going to studies. And it was an event, it is still an event technology provider. It started out as an app. So just like the Future Forward event, you would be able to see before you go to an event, who's there, network them, set with meetings. And for event organizers like yourself, and this is how I met, essentially I think I sold you this technology, it was a great tool to be able to more effectively and efficiently organize events.
And back in the days, there were not even alternative solutions that much.
I mean, the status quo was just show up, and who you meet is who you meet, which is great for the informal nature. Today, correct me if I'm wrong from your experience, people want to make the most out of every event, every engagement. So they really had, the Visibl founders had the foresight to think of, disruption is a big word, and in the public sector it's more, but they did disrupt what is a traditional event industry with technology that was effective and improved the overall event experience. And I learned a lot from that role. Obviously that's how we met, but I also learned how there's so much potential for also simple, not everything has to be too complex, but simple technologies to improve based on what is the current status quo, which is often doing nothing. And it resonated with me. I learned a lot about, in the operator role of working at a very small startup. I think I was the second employee in the New York office. So it was nice. It was a really great experience, and that's how we met.
Nice. Yeah, I have good memories. You were super supportive. Thank you.
Yeah.
Even
it was
now.
my first customer service relationship management role.
No,
yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And fast forward 13, 14 years later, you're a general partner, right? At the VC, investing into technologies that help climate tech, water tech. Could you say anything about maybe how you got there from the Visibl days? Of course, you cannot tell every detail because it would take a lot of...
how much time do we have?
A few hours.
Yeah.
But just the most important kind of like milestones on the journey.
Absolutely. I really do see my career and how I got here. Absolutely. There's phases and there's certain kind of nuggets here that each one is somehow connected. So I'll try to be brief. After my graduate studies, after Visibl, so let's say the startup role, really enjoyed that experience, but it was, and it is in an event technology role. I really wanted to go more into the impact sector. So we're talking about sustainable development, international development. That was always my core interest, and also what I studied, right, in terms of water resource management, smart cities, sustainable cities. So I came back to Israel and I had a few, the progression was a few roles, a few years, and then it led into this kind of investment opportunity. So I worked at a nonprofit that was affiliated with Israel's Agency for International Development. So I worked a lot with professionals from developing economies to really also learn from the Israeli innovation experience. So again, there's a connection always here back to innovation. So I did that for a few years, mostly capacity building, professional training programs. Then I worked a little bit in the private sector, mostly working in East Africa, kind of more of this practice what we preach type of scenario. Getting more field experience, especially in the kind of municipal smart city space. That came, again, to really help me in my next role, which is still today. I'm a senior advisor for an organization called SWAN, the Smart Water Networks Forum. I've been collaborating with them for almost 10 years. And again, there's a commonality here of zooming in on data-driven technologies to address major water challenges, especially municipal challenges from water leakage or quality issues. And through my engagements with SWAN, I met my partner, my general partner, John Robinson, who essentially had a lot of this incredible thesis that I really identify with, which is all about rethinking water, reimagining water from also an investment perspective. And so we teamed up to really start up Mazarine Climate. So
where does the name come from?
There's commonalities. So Mazarine initially, there's a Mazarine Ventures, which is essentially the first fund. So this is kind of a continuation, zooming in on kind of the blue tech, blue environment. So
and yet, where does the name originally came from? If
so
I
this,
may insist.
this you need to talk to John, but I believe there's like kind of that French water kind of blue connection that we kind of identify with, and there's a very good track record from before. So why start something new if something's working, right? So that was kind of the continuation, and now really more from a climate adaptation lens. So that brings us to me today.
What are the trends that defined your sector, like your investment sector, let's say, I mean, the companies you are interested in or solutions, I would say in the last few years, and how do you see the next 5 to 10 years?
It's a great question. So on the baseline, it's not really talking about hypotheticals, like what if something will happen? I mean, there's already extreme weather, water, heat events happening around the world. I mean, we can talk about it for hours, right? Whether you're talking about Spain, whether you're talking about Austria, or whether you're talking about Texas, right? In the United States, these events are happening. So our focus and our philosophy has always been there's already extreme events, extreme situations happening. Water risks, everywhere you go, there's a challenge related to water. And there's already relevant tools out there that exist, both from the hardware side, so I'm think sensors that are able to collect data in pretty much near, if not real time, to bring back to end users to make better decisions, right? And better anticipate and better address problems that are happening versus waiting around and then dealing with further exacerbated problems, right? Because you've been waiting. So those, for example, is really interesting. So also the hardware side. Today, hardware alone is normally not the answer. There's usually some embedded digital or software component. So
and AI, I guess,
and
right?
of course, AI, everything that John and I like to refer to as Industry 4.0. So Industry 4.0 is advanced analytics, AI, machine learning, drone usage, satellite imagery, Earth observation, anything that helps us see beyond the norm to better address, again, different patterns, different extreme events. That to me is, it's already happening, but the next 5 years, even more so, and it also is driving more affordability. So there's now today a lot more affordable options out there for sensors, where back in the day, actually we just had this conversation right with the videography team, there used to be heavy equipment that was like, not only expensive, by the way, like
hard
large,
to carry.
hard to carry, wasn't portable. Today, just like in the water industry, which is essentially, we don't talk about water industry, we talk about the water risk industry. It's a lot more affordable, it's a lot more compact. So what John and I look for, and this is not unique to other investors, is we want to see something that's faster, right? It's better, it's cheaper, it's safer. That's what we look at. And with Industry 4.0, which is unique to us from that climate and water risk lens, that to us is really a game changer in the way investments are going to be made, at least in terms of our thesis.
You know, one of the favorite movies of our generation is probably Back to the Future.
Yeah.
And you know, the second part, when they arrive to the future, which is 2015, right? And they can exactly predict what time the rain will stop, you know? How far do you think we are from being able to predict weather? Because I think it's, especially when we talk about, you know, this morning we had the discussion also with Dalarich from the Philippines, right? And all the typhoons and earthquakes and stuff like that. And I guess prediction itself would already help a lot, right? Yeah. And how do you see that, you know, happening?
It's a huge one. And by the way, weather, if you really zoom in, we're talking about precipitation and precipitation levels and how it changes, is water. We're talking about water at the end of the day. It's just reframing the conversation. There's already relevant tools out there. I mean, the most, I would say, pioneering, and there's a few competitors, is, for example, out of Israel, Tomorrow.io, really looking at weather from a business and risk lens. That's what Tomorrow.io and similar companies are doing today to measure, for example, weather patterns. I've seen also some smaller scale startups that are really looking to help better analyze precipitation patterns ahead of time, and then they're advising, again, end users, whether those are on the agriculture side or on the municipal side, or even what John and I, for example, are interested in is the insurance side, right? The fire market of financial insurance, real estate, they should know what's happening on water risk level because it impacts property and insurance claims. So there's a direct risk on the monetary, on the business side. Not to mention, of course, human lives and livelihoods and well-being, which is essential. So It's all interconnected, it's all interrelated. So regarding the weather and precipitation patterns already happening, I think it will continue to be a major focus, as well as other sources, of course, of information.
Actually,
Absolutely.
my understanding, I listened to a few podcasts and some experts talking about the topic, and my understanding was that it's still, it's the amount of data that we should analyze is still so much, so huge, that we are still not there to really able to make predictions out of that data. Is that true? Did I get it well?
It really depends on the quality, the granular level of data. Sometimes you can, that kind of depends on what the need is, right? But there
predicting the weather, let's say.
Yeah, let's take flooding, for example. There are tools today that can anticipate leveraging historical methods and also more kind of real-time based data collection up to, let's say 5 to 7 days ahead of an event. In some cases, even hours before in extreme situations. But that's already more helpful than not doing anything, right? And waiting for, and then think about the additional costs on the emergency management and emergency response side, right? And just the communications, which is critical piece, right, in emergency response, if that was better integrated. But you did mention Back to the Future, so I want to go back to that for a second, which is so funny, all these things at Swan, right? It
defines our generation for sure, right? That movie.
Absolutely, and you mentioned data, and how do we manage and deal with big data? The truth is, let's talk cities for a second, municipalities, because that's with my role at Swan. Most utilities worldwide, water utilities, and probably other end users, they're struggling even with the basics of data collection, data governance, data management. Forget now AI for just a second, even though that can help with some of the leapfrogging towards that data collection. They're struggling, again, we talked about Back to the Future. We're talking about the future when they have to go back to basics. So that's going to be essential, getting the data foundational principles together, improving data collection methods, including with leveraging Gen AI and LLMs and others. That is going to be key before sometimes making the leap and kind of putting the building blocks together. So we go back a little bit so to be able to go to the future together. And it's interesting you say, because we've been talking a bit about those dynamics, and movies help kind of bring this together a little bit, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And also help, opening up people's minds about common issues, problems, or just topics.
Exactly.
Yeah. And another question started formulating in my mind. What are the biggest misconceptions you think people have about climate tech, water tech? So people believe are important, but actually are not that important or insignificant for whatever reasons.
It's a fantastic, and it's important. Most important, it's an important question to ask. There's a funny meme I saw that a brilliant marketer created, which is, imagine I wish I had it on the screen. Maybe we can kind of embed it today later on. Carbon, right? There's a word on the screen. There's two interviewees, and reporters in the background. And there's water. There's one with water and one with carbon. And everyone is talking to the carbon. And water's left alone. Like no one cares. No one wants to talk about water in this climate discussion. I think water is often invisible. It's often overlooked. And from an investor perspective, it's almost forgotten that there's so much potential here, and that it interlinks with so many other topics and industries and application areas. So I think that's already one misconception, is water is not only investable, there are some excellent exit opportunities as well for those that are looking beyond. So for example, when you're looking at water, you're looking at too much water, sometimes too little water, right? Drought situations, too much water could be flooding, other extreme events, but there's also impaired water. Let's say invasive species that are impacting different coastal areas that affect supply chain and fishing and hotel. There's so many, again, barriers, continuations and items that it's addressing as a secondary an unintended consequence of not doing something, right? So that, I think, is a misconception, that it is absolutely often climate driven. I think the other is that a lot of discussions are going into climate mitigation, decarbonization, net zero efforts. Plenty of work is being done, especially on the kind of nonprofit side of this, even some philanthropists, but it's different. It's different than the climate adaptation space. I am seeing more and more technologies also on the adaptation space kind of rising here, and I do think that there's some really exciting investable opportunities. What else is a misconception? I think really it's not seeing water as a water risk lens. It's seeing it as only water scarcity or only we don't have water.
Yeah.
That's true in some places, but often the issue is not only that, right? It's a risk that impacts businesses. It impacts communities, impacts livelihoods. And so I think that's often a misconception, is just not thinking of the collective value and the collective impact of water and water risk.
I think for some evolutionary reasons that I can't explain because I'm not an expert on the topic, humanity can only realize problems when it hits,
Yes.
right? When they hit. And I remember in 2018, I was in Cape Town in South Africa when the so-called day zero
absolutely.
happened. So we were literally, they were counting back to day zero when they actually ran out of water. And it was probably not the first time in human history when a city was close to that, but definitely the first recorded situation, right? And the focus was so much on it. And then people started talking about it, of course, elsewhere, outside as well. But then when the problem, I was there when it started raining actually, and people were so grateful, you know.
Yeah.
And then everyone just forgot again. And
It's
now
true.
No one talks about it anymore, right?
It's true. We kind of, there's something I like to say, that water is often, it's often viewed as an antagonist, right? For example, a water utility will get a customer complaint. Speaking of Cape Town, by the way, I work also a city of Cape Town, fantastic, really a lot of fantastic individuals there, really insightful. They get called by, or they hear complaints, let's say, from residents. When did anyone call them to thank them for reliable service, right? So water is often portrayed in some negative, right? And it's an antagonist. It's the negative item in the story. It's a flooding incident. Lives were lost. But there's a positive side of water. And I think climate is often portrayed in a negative limelight, but there also is this positive opportunity, and there's a realistic, pragmatic way to view water and address water. And that's what excites me, is this type of lens of, okay, how are we going to do? How are we going to better understand what's happening? How are we going to be able to better observe and then act on it and make better decisions, proactive decisions, like City of Cape Town essentially had to do. And by the way, the way they helped address some of their challenges has inspired other cities and other communities worldwide. That's not to say that there aren't criticisms and concerns, but it is supposed to challenge us, and it's supposed to raise the profile and inspire others to act and be more proactive. So for me, it's changing the water mindset to more of the protagonist of a story. And for that, you need to value water more. You need to portray these stories. Absolutely.
And as an expert on the topic, how and what do you teach your kids at home about water?
So I am not an expert. I think
But being surrounded by experts.
I think everyone today is calling themselves an expert because
Sorry for the wrong introduction.
No, it's okay. I'm humbled by it. What I'm trying to say is I think everyone today can be an expert because education is so streamlined with so many, of course, LLMs and so forth. But there's many other sector experts out there. It's who you know and how you connect the dots, that helps. So I'm humbled, and I think more I'm a connector piece.
Yeah.
So I have two little children, 5 and 3, my son and my daughter. What do I teach them about waters?
And how? That's also an important question, because sometimes you get this, this kind of advice from teachers that like, you should do and deliver that message, but no one talks about the how. And of course, as an expert parent at the same time,
No, I think I'm a solid parent. I do think I'm a solid parent. It's a great question. I think even for me, because it's so much of my day-to-day life, I don't talk enough about it. So the first is absolutely awareness.
You tend to think it's obvious, right?
But it's not obvious.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah.
Right? I've had discussions because they're into baths. And like I said, back to my Israel background, I didn't take really baths going on because I was nervous about the water usage.
Yeah.
They don't. They're not aware of it. Okay. So I've had
conversations. They're young, right?
They're still young. And again, it's about balancing the serious fun. Fun is important, and having a great childhood is important, but there's also a serious matter here. There's a natural resource, right? There's an important resource. So we have spoken about shortening bath time or showers, maybe not doing it daily. So frequency is a really big issue. Overusage is a big issue. So I think in climate-related topics or in water-related topics, there's sensitivities, right? We love water. It's calming.
Yeah.
It's fun, right? They love splash time, even since they were babies.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying get rid of it and be a extreme parent, let's say, or extreme solution. Adjust the frequency. So we've done that a little bit and had some discussions. Again, probably not sufficiently. What else? It's important to be out in nature. Today, schools are starting to understand a bit, and again, they're both still in preschool, right? Or my son's in kindergarten now, but it's go out and see where the water bodies are near you. You might not live near one. I happen to live, near a river. So we go, and my son especially is really into fishing. Mm-hmm. So we go, and all of a sudden he's like, oh, there's no fish here. Well, why do you think there's no fish? So it's the why. Kids like to ask why, and we can learn a lot about that.
Definitely.
Why? Get to the root cause of the problem. Don't just say there's no fish. You're just saying what? You're just explaining. So we try to talk about this. We try to talk about scenarios. We talk about pollution, but it's better to feel it. It's better to see it. And experience it, and that's helpful. The harder thing for kids, in my opinion, and for people of all ages, is understanding risks that you don't see. Yeah. So risks below the surface, and for that you need different technologies out there. We're not there yet. I'll get there. I want to wait. Maybe let's wait till first or second grade. But
it takes time, and at least me, I'm also a parent. Yeah. I feel that I can never be perfect at being a parent. So I'm just aiming for better, but.
And I think perfection it's not realistic, and it's not what we need. I think
done is better than perfect, as a good friend of mine said. Yeah.
Absolutely. And one thing I've learned from a few other expert colleagues, let's say, is things don't have to be too transformative sometimes. We tend to all think big now. You can have incremental improvements. We spoke about our projects, right? You work on a lot of different projects, which is exciting. Milestones, phase-based, right? This is helpful because you're taking incremental steps toward progression and toward improvements. And to me, that sounds also realistic as well. And you adjust, you pivot, you learn from failures or unexpected outcomes, and you're not setting up your projects, your customers, your stakeholders for failure when you're doing it in a more pragmatic approach. And I value that, and that's something I've used in my work across different hats. Yeah.
So we're running out of time, and thank you so much for everything that you have shared so far. Is there anything else you would like to mention, highlight, or emphasize? Something we missed out from the conversation you would really like, to mention?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for the opportunity here. I think even zooming out from kind of day-to-day role, I think some of the key words. So there's a lot of buzz and there's a lot of concerns, and we spoke about the negative side of walking out of an event when you're talking about climate and everyone's pessimistic and an alarmist perspective. I have a different one. So I think to equip especially children and young professionals, again, to this next phase of AI, which is growing exponentially. I mean, every single day there's incredible improvements. It's more of a question back to people of rethinking technology, rethinking the way they approach problems, and thinking about it from an adaptive mindset. So not just saying something's being done to me and taking a negative view. How are you going to adapt? How are you going to leverage it for efficiencies and productivity? And most importantly, don't forget the empathy and the judgment in what you do. If you're copying and pasting something, chances are you're missing that human element and human component, and that's not going away, right? The empathy and having proper judgment, that's, I think, the missing piece for a lot of sometimes the technologies we've seen out there, but also in the kind of the connection between nonprofits and academia and the different processes involved. So I'll leave it with that and kind of more of an opportunity lens, essentially. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time again, and hope to see you soon again.
Yeah. Thanks again, Peter.
Thank you.